Cinnamon Pistol. She's like a barista, but she also can like defuse bombs, but like a ghost is following her.
Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Brand new.
Hey, we're talking brand new Joe. Hey, we're on a brand new show. Deep dives, blow by blow. Spotting Uzis and crossbow. Like a buzzball or pogo. Got ninjas like Don Shadow. Comics are how I spend my dough. We're coming to you in stereo. It's time for Talking Joe. With Mark and Tim, here we go.
Brand new.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the G.I. Joe comics podcast from the far reaches of the Energon Universe. Now, we are talking today about G.I. Joe issue number 8, released Wednesday, June the 18th, 2025. The synopsis is Major Bludd is back for revenge against the woman who took his eye, the Baroness. Now Baroness must decide if protecting herself means staying with G.I. Joe. Now, I will not be talking about this issue on my own. As always, I'll be joined by a real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Hello, Mark and listeners and viewers. Mark, are you wearing a Night Force Chuckles shirt?
I think I must be. Yeah, it looks
Cool.
like it. That's
Okay.
very good. Now, mission debriefing from last time. Tim, last time we were talking about issue number 7, and we were talking about the scene. When we were talking about issue number 6 even, we were talking about the scene where Cobra Commander had created in his machine, this sort of brainwave bomb machine, this thing that he took out and then revealed to his Cobra minions later on. And we thought to ourselves, ooh, that looks an awful lot like some sort of matrix of leadership, maybe a dark matrix, maybe it's the same one that Megatron had in that Flashbook issue.
Maybe it's the venomous Matriximus.
Could be,
No,
but
it's not. We've been told it's not.
We've been told it's not. In this very issue we're talking about now, issue number 8, we have been told that it is a transformation cog, also referred to as a transforming cog, a transition cog, conversion cog, T-cog, morph core. It's a component important to a transformer's transformation and scanning. Tim, can you tell us more about what a T-cog is? Because I think we, and probably everyone else, thought this thing that Cobra Commander created was something entirely different, but they've clarified now in the letters page.
Yeah. Also, if it is a transformation cog, he didn't create it. He found it. Did you just say that? So my earliest recollection of the transformation cog is from a 1986 episode of Transformers. I think this is part of 5 Faces of Darkness. Maybe it's part 3 or 4. Metroplex, who is both an autonomous Autobot, but also the Autobot city, but kind of the Autobot sort of battle station base. It's a little unclear. Do they live there? Does he not get to transform? Does he only transform when he needs to get up and walk somewhere? Metroplex's transformation cog is stolen, and some other Autobots have to get it back, and he can't transform without it. He's stuck in city mode and vulnerable. And then I have to admit, I have not reread my Marvel Generation 1 run in a long time. I don't remember if transformation cogs are part of the Bob Budiansky, Simon Furman continuity. When I think of, middle animated Transformers, Beast Wars, Beast Machines, I keep thinking of Sparks, which was the other glowing spherical thing. And that's a mythology that was invented during Beast Wars and has been sort of taken on as a permanent part of Transformers since then. So I have to admit, my recollection, my knowledge of transformation cogs is embarrassingly spotty at this moment, despite me sometimes claiming what a big Transformers fan I am on this G.I. Joe show. But certainly it has shown up in comics in the last 20 years, Dreamwave, IDW, Skybound. I just can't think of any examples.
Very good. Okay, let's have a look what else is happening in the world of the Energon Universe and Skybound. Now, I think we've got a jingle.
30 seconds before we started recording this episode, I emailed Mark a very, very short audio file, which is not finished. And Mark, I think you're going to tee that up right now.
Yep.
All around the skybound world, are you looking for some G.I. Joe? There's Autobots and Decepticons and creatures from the sacred ring. Well, if you're looking through Transformers, you might find Dr. Greer. That's Doc. And that's as far as I got.
That's it.
I really only had a verse and a half, or a verse and half of a bridge. I thought maybe Mark would write the rest, or maybe I'd be inspired later today and write the rest. I came up with that while in the backyard with my cat.
It's where a lot of thinking happens.
Yeah. He's walking the dog, or you put your cat on a leash, sit in the backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what else has? Yes, okay. So this is out.
So this is Codename G.I. Joe book number 1, the hardcover, which contains Duke and the Cobra Commander miniseries, and that was released on June the 11th, 2025. I've somehow, a nice hardcover appeals to me. It's sort of part of my core sensibilities, but somehow I've held off actually buying this. And I was thinking to myself, why haven't I bought this? And I think I'm just trying to buy less stuff because I do have the stories, but it would be nice on the shelf. So we'll see how long I can hold off not buying this particular book. Don't forget, in addition to those 2 miniseries, it also includes the Duke epilogue from the 2024 Energon Universe special. It has a couple of bonus pages. We have 2 copies at my store. I have not opened one. Do we think it has all the covers? So all the A covers, or all the A and B covers? I'm hearing it's got at least all of the A covers. I'm not sure about how comprehensive it is on the cover. It sounds like it probably doesn't have all of the variants, but there are an awful lot of variants. So that is understandable. Just a reminder for nomenclature, folks. Volume, that's the word that Skybound is using for the skinny paperbacks, which have 5 or 6 issues each. And book, that's the word Skybound is using for these hardcovers, which have 2 story arcs together, right? So if you ask for hardcover 1, you're asking for hardcover book 1. Okie dokie. And then out June the 4th, 2025, we didn't talk about this one last time. This is JoJo number 1, 4th printing. Getting into 4th printing, that's pretty good. This cover is by Howard Porter, who I remember as being the artist from Grant Morrison's Justice League, JLA. And Romulo Fajardo Jr. Colored Rob Liefeld's Snake Eyes Dead Game miniseries. And when that came out, I said, this guy is great, and he's going to get snatched up. And soon he was coloring Wonder Woman and something for Marvel. And say what you will about Rob Liefeld, he finds good color artists. Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, without wanting to sling mud, having collaborators that make him look good is a helpful thing. So not Energon Universe, but published by Skybound, Battle Beast is at its 3rd printing, Battle Beast number 1. This is Robert Kirkman and Ryan Otley. It's from the Invincible universe. But significantly, I am calling this out, not just because it's a great book and I'm really enjoying it, but this particular cover is drawn by Tom Reilly. It is drawn and colored by Tom Reilly, who so far has not done any Battle Beast covers. There were a bunch of covers for the first printing of issue 1 and even the second printing of issue 1.
And this one has a really nice balance of red, yellow on the character and green in the background. It really pops.
It looks nice. It's got a good pop to it, indeed.
Mark, speaking of the difference between books and volumes, did we mention that G.I. Joe Volume 1 in softcover is out with the first 6 issues?
I don't think I did mention that.
So this kind of passed me by. This came out this past week, and we have it at my store on our new graphic novel section. And I got to say, I'm a little embarrassed that I neglected to include it in our weekly email, because the very short version, folks, is since the pandemic and publishers are getting their comics to stores through not one or two, but now many, many distributors, right? This isn't just the like Diamond got bought thing or Diamond went bankrupt thing. This goes back a couple years. It's much harder for a comic book store to collate what is new each week because it's coming in many, many different emails from many, many different accounts. And I don't know about other stores, but folks, I do it manually. I copy and paste titles and issue numbers of singles and graphic novels, and I paste them into a text file. And recently in the last year, I've occasionally missed one, and then I include it the next week. So folks, if you're listening and not watching, Mark has just put on screen the Image Comics website listing for G.I. Joe trade paperback volume 1, The Cobra Strikes, ! The book trade cover is Tom Reilly's cover to issue 1 with the good guys with the blue sky, and then the direct market exclusive cover that only comic book stores can order if they have accounts with Lunar is the back cover from Tom Reilly's issue number 1, which is the bad guys with the red background sky. And once again, the title of this volume, this arc, is a reference to the G.I. Joe cartoon or the Transformers cartoon. The titles of these Transformers arcs, maybe even the Void Rivals arcs, and this first G.I. Joe, I mean, the very first episode of G.I. Joe, folks, episode number 1 from 1983, the title is The Cobra Strikes, although here they've added an exclamation mark.
Very good.
So fun, also making it hard to Google.
So elsewhere in the Energon universe, we've got G.I. Joe number 8 that we're talking about today, but we've also got Void Rivals issue 20, I think that is 20, which is being released on June the 25th, which at the time of recording is in the future. So we have not yet seen this book. And we talked about the last issue last time, so we don't have an awful lot extra to say about Void Rivals, although there has been a little bit more information about the Void Rivals toy, which I believe will be at San Diego Comic Con. A 3 3/4 O-ring, two pack of the 2 lead characters, alongside Jetfire. But we did talk about a comic book reprint of issue 1 with an exclusive comic cover. Now, we talked about issue 20 last time of Transformers, which featured the first appearance of Doc.
Dr. Greer, like my song.
Exactly.
That's what I was saying, folks.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about. And the imprisoned Ultra Magnus, now in the most recent issue of Transformers, which came out just at the time of recording last week.
3 days ago.
That was... I didn't write down that date, but...
That was the 11th. The 11th of June.
11th of June. And in that particular issue, we saw a continuation of that Doc storyline and the reappearance of General Flag, who we last saw at the end of the Destro miniseries, where he was having shenanigans with Destro when he sort of walked into that base and handed himself in. So thoughts on the Doc appearance? 2 more pages, Doc, Flag, and a what we might expect is a Joe called Carpazzo, and I did Google that, and there didn't seem to be an awful lot, but on the Google indicated, apart from, I think it's a character from that. What's he called? Riddick. What's he called? The bald
Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. Yeah, I think Vin Diesel played a character called Carpazzo in Saving Private Ryan or something like that. So not an awful lot that we've got to go on. No.
This character Carpazzo is talking to Doc, and he's seated, and you only see him for one panel, and he's wearing sort of an orange hazmat suit. And I thought, Clean Sweep? No. Clean Sweep wears a yellow hazmat suit. And then I thought, oh, that orange hazmat suit Playmobil figure that my wife and I bought 10 years ago? No, that's Playmobil. That's not G.I. Joe. What really struck me about this scene with Doc in Transformers 21 is how Flag is sort of torturing Ultra Magnus, or it is torturing Ultra Magnus, because Ultra Magnus is, seriously though, this orange hazmat suit guy, that's just what the Playmobil figure looks like. I'll send a JPEG, folks, to Mark, and he can add it when he posts this episode to Facebook. I am always a little upset when a character is chained up in a comic book and a good guy says, we need the information. And the person who's chained up, or the alien robot who's chained up, says, I can't give you that information. And then the person says, well, we'll just have to torture you. And then there's a sound effect of someone screaming or some electricity. And then the scene ends. And I think, oh no, Flag's not a good guy.
Yeah, he does seem like he might be slightly morally compromised. Willing to make tough choices. So a cool introduction this month to the pages of the Energon Universe is this, what they call Energon Experience page, where they've got character spotlights, a thing about a particular article about a character in the middle, and a creator Q&A. And in the pages of the Transformers book, they had a spotlight on Ultra Magnus. They had another spotlight on Doc and a creator Q&A. But the most significant thing about that is that we saw a Tom Reilly looking at his hand character design for Doc. So it's very cool to see that Tom Reilly has this through line of doing all of the character design of the Joes in the Energon universe, including Doc. Carl
Folks,
Doc Greer.
If you're wondering how Skybound can afford a page for this fun behind the scenes or fluff, your mileage may vary. Now, when you finish the comic and there's 2 pages of letters, now instead of a full page with next month's cover, now instead of 2 pages of what are the upcoming Energon Universe comics, right, where 1 cover is really big and 2 are small across G.I. Joe, Void Rivals, and Transformers, they've now shrunk those 3 covers down so that this what else is happening in the Energon Universe preview of covers is just 1 page. So that's how they got this space.
I see. Makes sense. Speaking of covers, shall we look at some now?
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
Cover A of G.I. Joe, issue 8, is drawn and colored by Tom Reilly. We're looking down at the Baroness at sort of a it's actually, it might be an isometric view. It's not much linear perspective, or it's very, very, very subtle 3-point perspective. Anyway, we're high up looking down as if we're on like a 2nd story catwalk. She's walking in sort of tourist mode. She has a carry-on bag, a wheelie bag, a roller bag. She's got jeans and a white t-shirt and a leather jacket and a backpack. And she is walking. We see her full body. She's on the bottom right of the corner. And she's walking across a big marble floor that has inscribed in it a giant sort of, golden bronze metal circular G.I. Joe symbol, which is the star with the 3 stripes, as if she's sort of leaving Joe headquarters. You've seen in movies where someone walks out of the CIA or the FBI, or they walk in, or, at the beginning of, is it the Hellboy movie? They walk past the BPRD logo on the floor and it's like 10 feet in diameter, like that. Yet, so she's casting a shadow, but also a shadow cast sort of behind her, but much, much, much bigger and out of scale, is a person in profile holding a pistol. And you might think, oh, well, that's Duke, or anyone representing danger, or maybe you think it's Major Bludd, because we've been sort of promised that this issue has, and this story arc features Major Bludd.
Are you saying, Tim, that there will be blood?
Yes. And I actually don't think this is blood.
Oh, it definitely is blood.
Okay, it's definitely
Surely.
blood. I mean,
I guess it's left up to imagination. In my mind, it was only ever blood. I guess you could say, is that Duke? Is it Risk? I mean,
it's probably blood. And then sort of the top third of the cover is more of this shadow. And the way that this sort of light source and this cast shadow of this person holding the pistol sort of lands behind the Baroness, it's as if she's walking past maybe a giant, like, second story window. And perhaps this, let's say, Major Bludd is standing up on the catwalk to our left. So she doesn't see the shadow. She doesn't see the danger literally behind her, metaphorically behind her. This is an interesting cover because it's pretty quiet. It's not a battle scene. It's not characters posing after a battle scene like, Tom Reilly's cover for issue 1. It is a Baroness cover, but I don't think this is going to make Mark's video montage of, egregious Baroness covers, too sexy Baroness covers, variant covers with the Baroness for issues where the Baroness is not in the issue. This really is a story cover, a representative story cover, where in the issue, Baroness leaves headquarters to go somewhere and someone's after her. And here in the cover, she's leaving headquarters to go somewhere and someone's after her. And
it's, I guess, also prompting the question, why is she leaving as well? It's sort of, there's lots of these covers of like that classic X-Men cover with Cyclops and the shoulder bag leaving the X-Men, all of these kind of things. So it sort of puts you in mind of that family of covers of people leaving, perhaps, and sort of, is she leaving G.I. Joe? Why is she leaving G.I. Joe?
If there are cues here that sort of help give you ideas. She is leaving with she's got a carry-on bag and a personal bag. She's not carrying a weapon. She's in her civilian clothes. If this was 1979 and a Marvel cover, surely there would be some dialogue above her in a word balloon where she's like, "Duke, I'm out of here." Or there'd be a burst on the bottom left, which says something like, "When the Baroness leaves, can the end be far behind?" Or, "Look out, Baroness, danger lurks around every corner." Okay, cover B is drawn and colored by
Hold on. Can I play the jingle now, Tim?
Why are there so many covers of Baroness?
For those of you who are new to the show, there's like a 2-minute version of that Mark made that has many, many more covers. And let's
play that now.
And I keep meaning to edit for Mark like a faster version where the covers go by really fast, so that when he does play the short version, we can see more of the images. And I do think there's a difference between the egregious, sexy Baroness or egregious variant Baroness cover where she's not in the issue, as opposed to like that Rod Wiggum one that just popped up on screen where she's fighting Billy. And that really is a scene that happens in the issue, I think. And she's in that issue. Anyway.
And this one, I'm sort of playing that jingle with the tongue in cheek because this is very much a Baroness focused issue. This particular cover with the target on Baroness is talking to kind of, the themes of the issue. So it gets a definite pass. This is not an egregious use of Baroness on the cover for no reason. There is a good reason to have her on the covers of these issues. So it gets a pass. And I'm just playing the jingle because otherwise people will be disappointed, Tim.
It's almost as if since the Baroness is a regular on the team and is in every issue, we sort of need a new 0 point of comparison. So, because the Baroness earns her covers now. So, does there need to be a new jingle after some new phenomenon where like Chameleon becomes the new hot character and all the variant limited covers are like, oh, a sexy Chameleon cover on this issue where Chameleon isn't. And then Mark writes a new jingle. Okay. Cover B of Energon Universe issue 8 is drawn and colored by Andrea Milana. If you were to describe this cover to me, this is what I might have guessed would have been the A cover, because this is more representative of what happens in the issue. It's less of the Baroness is walking out leaving and more of the she is being hunted, where she's crouched. We see about 2/3 of her body, the way that she's cropped. She's looking directly at us. Superimposed between us and her is a green crosshair. She is holding a dagger and sort of looking back at us as if she's just been, knocked over or reached down to pick up her dagger. Behind her is, I don't exactly know what it is, but it's cool. There's sort of a horizon line that divides, say, the ground on the bottom half of the cover and the, sky or wall on the top half of the cover. But the sort of color treatment of these two sort of forms feels like something burning, the surface of the sun, hot lava, sparks and flame and smoke. Mark, do you want to jump in here? I don't think we're looking necessarily at a literal environment where the Baroness is. I do think it's more evocative, but what do you see or think of looking at this cover background?
Yeah, similar thoughts. I can't be sure really. I'd be curious to ask Andrea what he had in mind. Yeah, like a nuclear explosion, but it's sort of the oranges and the muted, and it's sort of like it got a curve to it. Like, is that the moon or a horizon?
The curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows at this point?
I don't want to say unclear. It's unspecified, but not unclear in a bad way. Anyway, and it's a cool cover. Okay, cover C. This is the 1:10 ratio connecting cover with, we saw the first part of it last month with issue 7, which was photos of Lady J, Flint, and particularly Beachhead on a desk with some stuff like a gun and a bullet. And here we've got more stuff like binoculars and a compass and a scope and 3 bullets and the front of a pistol. And the main photo here we're seeing, which is on top of some overlapping maps. And the light source feels like there's a lamp sort of off to the left or bottom right. The photo here is Baroness standing in front of a greenish vehicle that maybe shoots missiles. I can't quite tell if this is a known G.I. Joe vehicle or just sort of military vehicle stuff. She's got a big rifle over her shoulder and her right boot is up on something. So she's sort of posing for the photo, having maybe just sort of been victorious in battle. Who's the artist on this one, Mark?
This is Alan Quah.
Okay. And then cover D is the 1:25. This is Major Bludd with the explosion behind him that we've now seen for many, many G.I. Joe 1:25 covers. The explosion is supposed to look like the Hector Garrido painting from the 82 to 85 toy card art. We have seen Major Bludd previously on one of these explosion variant covers, right? But was that it was a different angle. We were looking sort of straight on at him. And
I think it was a Carl Kerschel. And they've got this new blue element being added to his costume, which kind of is being used as kind of an excuse for. Typically, they're doing these second time arounds on these explosion backgrounds where it's a character that looks significantly different to how we've seen them before. And I think Bludd has got this glowing blue components to his costume, but also significantly an eye patch.
Yes, because he lost an eye when the Baroness shot him in the head. The angle here is really different. We are looking down at him. We are like at 9 feet, and the cover is very much about his head and his torso and the way that his arms are almost crossed. He's holding his giant pistol sort of over his other bicep. And I believe the description of his expression here is sneering, and then his legs taper very, very small sort of below him because the perspective is forced.
I was just going to note on this one that this one was drawn by Marco Ferrari. This is the 1 in 25. So Marco Ferrari was the Scarlet artist, and interestingly enough, we had a long series of these explosion backgrounds drawn by Jeff Spokes. So we're seeing a bit of variety in artists on these covers once again.
Cover E is the 1 in 50 ratio. Your store has to order any combination of 50 copies of covers A and B in order to qualify to be able to order one of these. Mark, tell us who the artist is.
This is Rossi Gifford. That's Rossi Gifford. So Rossi or Rosie.
I think Rossi.
It's an interesting composition, isn't it? It's very not G.I. Joe is one way of saying it. It feels more like an indie comic about a glamorous lady going on a foreign vacation
or a 2002 Vertigo miniseries, called like Cinnamon Pistol. Right. And it's like she's a spy, or she's like a barista, but she also can like defuse bombs, but like a ghost is following her. And they're going to team up. And anyway, okay. So this cover is unusual for that reason. So this is the Baroness in her civilian clothes, but very different civilian clothes. I guess she is wearing a white top and a jacket and jeans, but the cut of the jacket's quite different, and she's got a studded metal belt. She is sort of at rest with her legs crossed at a tiny table under an awning at a sidewalk seating area in a cafe in Paris. Just below her is a cat, a white feline cat that's stretching and scratching its claws on the leg of her chair. And she's got, cappuccino on her table. The table behind her, no one is seated there. And then 1 or 2 tables further in the distance, this is all 1-point perspective behind the Baroness. There are 2 or 3 people who are at other tables. They're facing away from us. And then behind them and then off to the left are maybe 10 other people sort of walking along the sidewalk, all kind of facing away from us. And then what's really unusual about this cover is its color treatment, where all of the sort of sky above these pedestrians and the sidewalk sort of around them is this really interesting harsh yellow, which I think both represents the sunlight, but also just the negative space of not in the shade of the awning. And then Baroness's Caucasian flesh tone here is this sort of hot red with a little bit of like magenta in it, which matches the table and the umbrella in the distance and the logo, although that's a lighter version. The awning is a sort of a grayed out warm blue. The windows behind her reflect that sort of hot yellow. It's a very fun, unusual cover, and I think is a really good example of how Skybound chooses to depict the Baroness on a cover for a rare comic in a different way than IDW would. The only way that the Baroness would have shown up on a cover, a G.I. Joe cover published by IDW like this, is if it had been in the Paul Allure, like World on Fire continuity, like some flashback to the Baroness's life, before Cobra won the war, or the like the Aubrey Sitterson G.I. Joe or like Scarlet's Strike Force series that sort of wrapped up that continuity where it's sort of not the G.I. Joe we had known, and the characters had different costumes. Fun cover. Weird.
Oh, yeah. I've just found some interesting behind the scenes on this cover from Rosie Gifford's Instagram. So I'll just share that on screen.
And as far as we know, this is the first G.I. Joe art by this artist?
I believe so. So she says, my variant cover for G.I. Joe issue number 8 featuring the Baroness. Swipe along to see some behind the scenes showing some rough concepts and influence. Wanted something discreet and spy thriller tone amongst the crowd, but armed and ready. Now, Tim, I don't know if you mentioned this, but she is sort of reaching for a pistol behind her back with her left hand.
Left hand, okay.
Wanted
keep reading. The cafe.
The cafe setting is based of a place I visited in Paris in 2022, Le Quartier Général, in the heart of Boulevard Saint-Germain. Ideal setting for comic book enthusiasts, as it is right beside the famous Album Comics. If you know, you know. I think they are a comic shop and also a publisher. I think they're behind the G.I. Joe French language comics, Album Comics. Maybe vain, but this is still one of my best photos of me taken. But more importantly, the setting and vibe of the patio was perfect to drop in the Baroness. I find it fun to use personal experiences and locations you've been able to use in works like this. It's pretty obvious Bob Peak was a huge inspiration for colour and layout.
Oh, Bob Peak. Okay, so folks, Bob Peak painted the poster for Superman, the movie, the one that's just the sky with a red streak, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Apocalypse Now, My Fair Lady. Anyway, famous movie poster artist. Many more.
So we can see some of the different concepts that she was tried out. We got 6 different different ideas, and the one that she went for in the end was idea A. And then she's posted a picture of herself, which is kind of the inspiration for Baroness in this cafe setting. So the awning, the chairs, the table, very familiar from that cover. Cool to see.
I should be fair to IDW. I can imagine one more scenario where they may have published a cover like this. There were a couple variant cover themes where IDW would have sort of every book across the publishing line have a certain style. Like one time they were all like EC covers from the 50s. And I can imagine IDW doing like movie posters of the 60s and 70s. And a very cool artist perhaps have taken an approach like this. What a cool cover.
We've got the last cover. So on screen, we have the 1 in 100 by Howard Porter and Romulo Fajardo Jr., in fact. So we were talking about Howard Porter not long ago. So here he is on this 1 in 100 too, which is Baroness and Major Bludd together. Sort of looks like they're grappling and falling, having defenestrated out of a window.
I do like this cover. I think it's a little busy. Howard Porter is one of those artists who, when he drew JLA in the late 90s, to me, that was DC Comics really trying to publish a Marvel comic. Because a lot of DC's art still looked like DC had always looked. Tom Grummett and Dan Jurgens and Ty Templeton and Jerry Ordway, and I love all that stuff. And Porter left comics and came back, if I'm remembering correctly, and has done some new covers for the JLA collections of that run. He's done some, covers and a bunch of work on the Flash. He drew the Flash then, and he's come back and drawn the Flash now. And he has learned a lot, and his stuff is less busy. and I think his anatomy's gotten a little better. And I'm still sort of triangulating what his new stuff looks like. And I would not have guessed that this is him. I like the idea of it. I like the action of it. I think the perspective, there's so much going on where the gun, Major Bludd's gun that Baroness is sort of shoving out of the way, sort of at us. The perspective on it is really forced, and their sort of forward arms are so big, and her legs are very small, and there's a lot of broken glass, shards of glass. And I think I understand the perspective of all the buildings, but it also feels like, 3-point and curvilinear at the same time. And I think with the sort of explosion and the crashing and the glass and them and the buildings, it ends up being a little bit too much happening all at once for me. But it is, certainly the kind of cover that you expect for G.I. Joe, particularly compared to the A and B covers of lady walking in lobby and lady crouching looking at you, right? And this is like this is like a 2-sentence cover. It's like 2 people are having fallen out of a window with an explosion and broken glass, so and so.
Very good. So next up we have Jason Howard with a connecting cover. So Jason Howard's has created a all new image with connecting images across 3 titles. Those titles being G.I. Joe issue number 8, Transformers issue 21, and Void Rivals issue 20. So those come in both full color and also in black and white. And that is a 2nd anniversary connecting cover, which he's clearly put a lot of work into it. And he put on his social media a little video which said what a couple of weeks looks like as he sort of zooms around the black and white line work of this giant image that he's created.
I wonder if this is for sale when it is for sale. Would all 3 be sold together? Just a comparison, a reminder, folks. Jason Howard a year ago drew 4 covers that connected. One was for Transformers, one was for Scarlet, one was for Void Rivals, and one was for Destro. And that was the 1-year anniversary of the Energon Universe, sort of dated from Void Rivals issue number 1. And what was fun about this is that Howard needed to put a character who represented each of those titles front and center. And in the case of Scarlet, she is the foremost character, but she's not the biggest. So in drawing and composition, poses and color, how do you make Scarlet a little bit bigger, brighter, more prominent? How do you make, say, Devastator a little less prominent? And if you're saying, oh, well, there's going to be a logo in front of him, no, these color and black and white versions have no logos, right? Similarly with the Destro issue, Destro is front and center. At that point, he and Cobra Commander are interacting in that issue of Destro, but also there's some Transformers in the background. And so this 4-part connecting cover, and then, Mark, if you can go back to the 2nd year anniversary, this 3-part connecting cover, these are a really fun representation of where the Energon Universe was at about 1 year. And here, where the Energon Universe is at about 2 years. And, for example, this is what Megatron looks like in the monthly Transformers right now. He's still missing an arm, and he's got some wires hanging out of his eyeballs because he can't see. Cobra Commander has, slightly updated costume, etc. I do like the coloring on this 2nd year anniversary cover a lot. I think I did like it more on the first one, because the yellow of the background really contrasted with sort of all the blues of the characters. And this new one has a lot more cool colors to it, but it's still great. And one last comment, of course, as the Skybound folks keep telling us, they're holding the line at 3 monthly books. So there was no good way to squeeze a 4th cover out of this connecting image, because there are only 3 books to make covers for.
The little Easter egg on this particular cover that I noticed was, I was sort of scanning through them, or any sort of any characters there that were maybe a bit reveals or indicating anything in particular or unexpected. And the one that stood out for me was that we're seeing Matt Tracker on this particular cover just behind Beachhead. So again, sort of emphasizing that this Matt Tracker character is likely to be quite a key character in the Energon universe at year 2 and going forward.
And the one we're looking at right now with the Sharkticon, all the Joes, and also Optimus Prime and other Transformers, this is the G.I. Joe cover, right? And it's the Transformers cover that has Megatron. And cover
you're probably
Commander.
right. Yep.
Okay. I'm guessing. I don't have the information in front of me, but they're super great, and they also work really well without the color. Jason Howard's spotting of blacks and his sort of slightly thicker outlines on every character to separate them from whoever's in front of or behind them. Really nice. All the poses are energetic. Everyone's rushing toward you and firing and lunging, but all the poses are different from each other. It's great. Oh, and lastly, both these color and black and white versions are open to order. They are not rare or ratio. I mean, they might be rare because no one's ordering them, because it's hard to know what they are without the logos. But these are not ratio variant covers. These are just variant covers.
Very good. So for this month, we have just got one retailer variant, which is of Chameleon.
Covers of Chameleon. They're out each month. Collecting would be easy if your books were less frequent. She's red, black and blonde. Red, black and blonde.
There we go.
I forgot you had made a jingle.
I had. So this is Lyrics Lee from 616 Comics. I believe this went on sale May the 30th as a pre-sale from the616comics.com. It's in 2 flavors, a Virgin Premium card variant limited to 750, and a foil Virgin variant also with 750.
It's Chameleon just standing there. She's holding her giant sniper rifle. She's smirking at us. One of her hips is definitely thrust out to the side, so she is both keeping all of her weight on one leg and also standing in a little bit of a sexy pose. Not too sexy. She's in front of some scaffolding. I don't know if a place is being built or if a place was just raised with a Z. But there are a bunch of sparks flying around in the air, like from the posters for Rise of Cobra and lots of other movie posters. And I have seen other covers by Lyrics that I have liked more. This one feels like the rendering doesn't have quite as much polish as other covers by this artist. This definitely feels like, since Chameleon is not in this issue, this definitely feels like, at minimum, like just a cool spotlight of a character because it looks good and it doesn't matter. People just want a rare thing. And at sort of maximum, let's put a sexy character on a comic and we can sell it. And who cares if they're in the issue or not? I do wish that, let's say we're going to get a Chameleon Spotlight issue in the next year, that this cover would be held until then. But as a store owner, I didn't commission my own variant cover. So, I'm not voting with my dollars that way.
So this issue, number 8, comes to us from the creative team of writer Joshua Williamson, artist Andrea Milana, colorist Lee Loughridge, letterer Russ Wooton, editor Ben Abernethy, production design Andres Juarez, and production Ashby Florence. Let's go with a plot breakdown to find out what happens in this particular issue.
Plot breakdown.
At the pit, a training mission is underway. Risk and Covergirl versus Baroness. Baroness takes down Covergirl, but leaves herself exposed to a paintball shot from Risk. Meanwhile, as Cobra looks at footage of giant Transformers causing havoc in Seattle, Cobra Commander tells Destro what he knows of the Transformers. Cobra Commander says that he wants a working Transformer and not just pieces left behind. A working Transformer like Hound, perhaps, who is now back at the pit with Clutch, and he is being encouraged to stay on the down low for now. The Baroness asks for a break from the pit, and so Covergirl accompanies her on a trip to Paris in her private jet, on the condition that there will be no disintegrations. Sitting outside in a cafe, Baroness explains that she is spying on her parents, who are celebrating the anniversary of when they first met. They are spotted by a Cobra agent, however, who is reporting into Major Bludd. A group of falcons arrive, causing chaos with their flapping about and sharp talons. They signal the arrival of Raptor. Dun dun dun!
Mark, 2 questions. 1, when you saw that falcon, did you think, oh, Raptor is showing up? Or did you think, crazy stuff with birds?
I thought, oh, it's a falcon. Is it going to be Raptor? Are they going to put in... am I going to turn over the page and is it going to be Raptor? So I was preempting it and I was getting excited about Raptor because I was not expecting Raptor to be in this issue.
Question number 2. You mentioned that Hound is keeping it on the down low at the Joe headquarters. Would a good code name for an Autobot or Decepticon submarine be down low?
It would.
And I asked this, folks. Thank you. I asked this because don't forget there was a GoBot named Dive, which is either an incredible name or not. Since we're talking about Raptor and the final page reveal, is this a costume we have seen in the classified toy line? And if so, if not, what is this costume?
So this is I'll specify that I'm not going to share lots of images because we are recording ahead of time and we only have a sort of a grainy watermarked preview copy. But so I'm not going to share lots of images from the issue itself. But yes, that final page with Raptor looks very much inspired by the image that I've put on screen, which is one of the Raptor toy promotional images from Hasbro, probably shot by Shooting the Galaxy, which features Raptor in his classified look with these kind of robotic wings, these Wolverine-style claws, and very much the classified design. So this is looking very, very much like a faithful representation of the classified design for Raptor.
Okay, because previously we have seen Tom Reilly in the example, like an example being Duke, create his own costume, which maybe takes some cues from the 80s and some cues from classified toys. And you would say that the final page reveal of G.I. Joe issue 8 of Raptor is just the classified toy. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, and in the back of the book, under Josh's comments, he says, Joshua Williamson, he says, Raptor has such a cool visual. I knew that we needed to find a place for him. And I think part of the desire to include him in the book is probably the fact that we've got this cool rendition of Raptor that hasn't appeared in any other media thus far. And so let's stick him in the book and show him off.
Are you taking Joshua Williamson as referring to this cool visual as the classified toy or his 80s original? I'm kind of projecting here, but I'm thinking that Joshua Williamson probably saw this new classified version of
of Raptor thought he looks awesome. I really want to include him in the book, and sort of seeing that design probably accelerated him forward to being in the book earlier than he might have been otherwise had there not been a toy. That's my intuition.
Raptor, is he 87 or 88? One of those two. Maybe by the time I finish this sentence, Mark can fact check me. I remember vaguely being at a toy store when my brother and I saw a new wave of G.I. Joe figures and gasped. And my brother, we would sort of call it. We would see new figures. We'd pull them off the pegs and look in the back and see all the new tiny, tiny paintings. And we'd sort of call who got who. And I don't know if my brother called Raptor or sort of in buying new ones for the first time from a wave, he was already holding Raptor. And so sort of he called it by holding it. But I think we were both sort of simultaneously, Mark is telling me via text on screen that Raptor did come out in 87. I think my brother might have said something like, a giant bird costume. That's a bit much. And at the same time, like, well, but it's such a badass bird. It's not like Big Bird, it's not like this isn't a guy in a bird suit at a carnival. Like this guy looks like he might swoop down and like eat you. It's like if Godzilla was 6 feet tall, like, no, that's not like a cute, that's not Barney. This is like reptilian and anyway. And I was always more interested in the sort of fantastical and sci-fi elements of G.I. Joe, and my brother liked the more realistic stuff. And so thinking back, I'm a little surprised that he bought Raptor and not me. But my brother didn't have him fly around. He just gave him an AK-47 and stuck him on the back of the Hiss. And then certainly 3 years later, when we were catching up on the comics and we saw how Larry Hama handled the character and also that he helped murder Cobra Commander, his bona fides were proven. Okay, back to the Energon Universe. Okay, so we have this fun training sequence at the beginning, and it's meant to be a misdirect. I think if you're a trusting reader or a new reader, you might think that this is actual Red Alert, and these two Joes are trying to track down the Baroness because since the last issue, she's gone rogue and she's going to blow something up or escape. But if you've read a bunch of stories and seen a bunch of movies, you might think, this is a training exercise, and they're still on the same side. So I thought that.
I saw the preview because they put out the first 3 pages of this, and I think the reveal is probably page 4 that it's a training sequence, and I was like, this is 100% a misdirect.
Maybe you can Google that Mike Zeck cover from the beginning of the Devil's Due run while I say this. Very good. And then the splash page of this new issue of G.I. Joe, page 2, we're looking up from the floor past Risk and CoverGirl, and hiding up in the sort of pipes and ceiling of the ceiling is the Baroness, somewhat obstructed by shadow. And I thought, I think I've seen Venom do that on a Spider-Man cover or a Venom cover. I've definitely seen that in a G.I. Joe cover. And Mark was kind enough to read my mind ahead of time and find Mike Zeck's 2002 Devil's Due cover for G.I. Joe issue 9, where Snake Eyes is walking in a hallway, and we're not on the floor. We're actually at sort of his knee height, but close enough. And sort of balancing up in the ceiling is Storm Shadow. This is not a cover swipe. Andrea and Milana did not look at this G.I. Joe cover and say, I'm going to redraw that Mike Zeck image. The script said the Baroness is hiding up at the ceiling, and Andrea and Milana thought, I need to put the camera low to make it clear, because if you put the camera high, you're looking past Baroness and you kind of can't see her. So this is a fun scene where both Risk and CoverGirl get to be clever, and the Baroness gets to be, sassy and clever. And we get sort of light stakes because they're fighting each other, but they're still on the same side, and they're shooting each other with paintball markers. And So this was a fun scene. I did think this bit of dialogue on, is it page 3, where CoverGirl says to Duke, page 5, again, Duke? Come on, we've been running these training exercises all morning. And I thought, yeah, that makes sense. But at the same time, isn't that what you do when you're, like in Delta Force or Green Berets? If you're not on a mission, you just train. You just train and train and train and train. So I do understand why, sort of for drama's sake, she would say that. She would say that so that Duke can have his response, that they just lost and they need to keep at the ready. But I sort of feel like everyone here would just be training all the time.
I'd say my nitpick here is that if they're doing sort of paintball training, that they're not wearing any sort of eyewear protection, which as a child of the 80s, people of my generation have got a generational trauma of an episode of Biker Grove, which was a sort of a children's drama series that was shown where the character of PJ was blind. PJ and Duncan, best friends, played by now adult presenters Ant and Dec, and they PJ was blinded by a paintball where he took off his safety glasses and was shot in the eye. So seeing people having paintball training without eye protection is just a giant red flag for me and my generation.
And in the 2000s, having done paintball a couple of times with the aforementioned brother, I would not have done paintball nor been allowed to do paintball without goggles. Anyway, so that's a fun scene. On page 6, we see some Transformers, and we see 3 different Transformers. Well, depending on how you count, we see 12 different Transformers. G.I. Joe fans, if you're not familiar with Transformers, as Cobra Commander and Destro are reviewing footage from Seattle, we see Bruticus, who is all 5 Combaticons combined. That's like a space shuttle and a jeep and a tank and a helicopter and a transport rig, all as a giant metal man, a combiner, a gestalt. And then we see, and he is sort of knocking over the Seattle Space Needle. And
okay.
I couldn't remember, or he's teleported to LA and he's knocking over the Capitol Records building, which has a needle on the top. And I couldn't remember if we've specifically seen the Seattle Space Needle get knocked over in the pages of Transformers. But when I saw this page, I thought, okay, this starts to answer a question Mark and I have had, which is when and how will G.I. Joe catch up with what's happening in Transformers? Because seemingly for 6 issues, Decepticons have been walking around knocking over everything in Seattle, and the Autobots, fewer of them, weaker and much smaller, have been saying, oh no, save 5 or 6 humans, what do we do? And so we've been wondering when these 2 story points would sort of converge or overlap, and we're getting an answer. And elsewhere on page 6, in the second panel, we see Devastator, who is all 6 Constructicons combined. I don't think he's hugging a particular building. And so my note is, so we are caught up with Transformers roughly issues 13 to 18.
Yeah, and so it's like the sort of, I'm interpreting it as like the sequences between that shard of Cybertron sort of getting cut off in the pages of Transformers, that is just before G.I. Joe issue 1. And then the subsequent battle and destruction of Seattle is sort of during / some points while the Joes and Cobras are otherwise engaged, or after the immediate kind of events of issue 6. And now we're basically aligned, I think, in terms of the timelines now that the two books are parallel-ish.
Did I ask this last episode, 3 episodes ago? If Skybound publishes Compendia, is it going to be Void Rivals Compendia, Transformers Compendia, codename G.I. Joe Compendia, or is it going to be Energon Universe Compendia with story arcs in reading order? Wouldn't that be fun? And then at the bottom of that page, Destro and Cobra Commander are seeing Optimus Prime, And then I sort of abstractly thought, man, they sure are introducing Transformers into G.I. Joe, but keeping it a G.I. Joe book. And then 15 pages later, there was this great letter in the letters page by letter writer CL. This is the second letter, who says, I love the way the Transformers elements are included while still keeping it a G.I. Joe story. And the answer is, keeping that balance was key to us from the start. That G.I. Joe was still G.I. Joe. Wanted to make sure you could still read these books by themselves, that they had their own stories and identity. So I'm glad that is working for you. And I remember, Mark, when the Energon Universe was announced, we and many people were excited, curious, worried that this balance wouldn't work. And I'm sure for a minority of people out there, it's not working. And those people are probably just reading the Larry Hama comic, and that's great. But, the Transformers book really feels like a Transformers book, but there are two G.I. Joe guys running around for 2 or 3 pages. And the G.I. Joe book this month really feels like a G.I. Joe book. And there are Transformers helping out and harming for 2 pages.
And on this same page as well, they've got the T-Cog sort of highlighted in the foreground to remind us of its existence and its importance as a MacGuffin that no doubt will play a significant part of the plot to come.
Right. It's also helpful that in the letters page, the transformation cog is clearly called out, so that this problem I had a few issues ago where I thought, well, if Cobra Commander has a sort of matrix of leadership or matrix of something, because in the IDW continuity, they introduced the concept that there's more than one matrix, right? There's the matrix of leadership, there's the dark matrix, there's the matrix of combination, which is how the combiners happen, and maybe one more, I forget. But that's much bigger, and I can imagine that the sort of beating heart of all of the Autobots through millennia, that's really, really big. And that's the transformation cog, which is not like the beating heart. That's more like your pituitary gland. That can be much smaller. That could be a thing that a 6-foot tall man can hold in his hand. And I thought, if you don't like Transformers, you might quit this book with this issue, because Hound is here to stay. But if you're okay with not too much Transformers, this is not too much Transformers. And then there's a fun cheat, which I guess I approve of, where Clutch is talking to Hound, and movies do this all the time, and it's okay. And Hound transforms, and he gets a giant sound effect when he goes from vehicle mode to robot mode. And Clutch says, that's too conspicuous. You have to hide. And Duke sticks his head in, and you're supposed to think with this page turn that Duke is going to now see Hound revealed, because Hound just changed into a giant metal alien man. And Duke doesn't know that Hound is on the base. And when you turn the page, there's just a Jeep. And I think, oh, well, Hound can change from Jeep to robot, and he makes this transformation sound. But then a second later, he changes back and it's completely silent. Well, that's not really fair, but okay.
It's an interesting point in when they're talking as well, that he sort of transforms and he says, "Hey, what did I just say? No transforming." And Hound basically says, "I prefer this form when I am speaking," which is an interesting concept that as a non-Transformers reader, I don't know if this is a common idea, but sort of just to have them in robot mode when they're communicating is a much more comfortable configuration for them.
That line also struck me, and I think it is Joshua Williamson either creating just a little bit of color for Hound's personality, that it doesn't necessarily represent all the Cybertronians. I think it may be, I'm taking it as a meta comment on how Transformers have been portrayed over the years. If you go back to the earliest episodes of Transformers cartoon, the opening 3-parter from 1984, the Autobots and Decepticons do talk when they are cars and jets driving and flying. And in fact, one of my favorite scenes in all of Transformersdom is Spike and I think also Sparkplug driving across Oregon or Washington State in Jeep mode, and Hound's remarking how beautiful Earth is and how it's so different than Cybertron is, or maybe Spike says Earth is so beautiful, and Hound says Cybertron is very different. When we are inside Optimus Prime in auto mode, and a human or two is seated in his seats, there's sort of a gem red and white thing that sort of glows and pulses as he talks, the same way that like his mouth moves up and down when he's in robot mode. And I always thought that they can and should talk in vehicle mode. And I was really struck in the first Michael Bay movie where they, I think, almost never talk in vehicle mode. They like don't talk until they turn, I think I'm remembering this correctly, until they turn into robot mode. And that sort of reminds me of this thing in all the Marvel movies where like Spider-Man and Star-Lord like absolutely have to take their mask off to say one line in the middle of a fight. And then they can like put their mask back on and then like go back to being a visual effect that's like running around and shooting stuff. And I think that's because the people making the movie really want you to believe that it's not just the actor, but the character. And as long as it's, like Darth Vader with his helmet, that could just be a stunt actor or a CG thing. But if like Tom Holland takes his mask off and says something and you see his face and you see him emote, you reconnect with him and you believe it. And then he puts his mask back on and like does something amazing. And so I think this is, I think the meta commentary from Joshua Williamson may be here about agency, that Hound is a person and he can sort of control himself. And if he's going to talk, he's going to be in like person mode. And if he's a vehicle, he's working.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So next we have a bit of exposition. Sort of Baroness comes along, asks that she wants to get away from the base, doesn't want to feel like a prisoner, have 48 hours, and Duke is quite quickly convinced to let her go. It feels like he's got a little bit of a soft spot for her, maybe, and away she is on a private jet, ready with her specifications, and accompanying her is CoverGirl.
The private jet, and then the what happens when she gets to this cafe. These are funny. These are meant to be funny, right? Joshua Williamson is having fun that she is so wealthy or so connected that she can walk off a top secret military base in the American Southwest and get her private jet to Paris, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you feel about CoverGirl chaperoning her, and then the actual beginning of this cafe scene in Paris, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice sort of interplay. It's a nice character moment. It's sort of building out CoverGirl's character, who she hasn't necessarily had a huge amount to do up to this point. So it's kind of re-emphasizing who she is as a character, that she was a model before she enlisted in G.I. Joe, but she's got this whole other skill set and approach to what she wants from life, really. And so yeah, it's a nice little interplay of between CoverGirl and Baroness, and sort of somewhat shooting down Baroness of her thinking that CoverGirl is going to be some greasy sort of army type, and this highfalutin life would be complete anathema to her, whereas she's slots into it very comfortably, thank you very much, and maybe it's even a step down for her based on what she's seen before. So yeah, a fun little moment sort of in the middle of this story.
Is there an unspoken matching up of these two characters, or comparison, that they're both experts in fighting and combat, and CoverGirl is a very, very attractive woman, right? As evidenced by her former career. And then I don't know that anyone has said in the story that Baroness is a very attractive woman, but we just all take it on faith because that's who the character has always been. She's always had, a regal quality. it's a sexy skin tight costume. An important character has always been, really smitten with her. And I think there's this double standard where in a lot of comics or movies, you can have a lot of male characters with a range. Some are traditionally handsome or sexy. Some are, I don't know, sort of roguish or everyman. Some are quirky and unusual or sort of character actors. And some might be finger quotes ugly. And in a lot of movies and comic books, you have women who are like beautiful and very beautiful. And you maybe don't have that sort of other range. These scenes would have played a little differently if Stalker had been chaperoning her, if Duke had been chaperoning her. But because it's this other sort of most beautiful woman in the world of G.I. Joe, CoverGirl brings this added context so that when she says, as a model, I lived an exciting life, it's not just that she's saying it and living it, it's that she's also a beautiful woman, and Baroness is, as readers, we're going to see these two beautiful women and think, oh, a Baroness must understand.
And it talks to like the level of characterization that you've got in G.I. Joe as well, that you don't have like just pure cookie cutter interchangeable characters that they're mostly quite distinct. If you were to have Duke or Stalker or Scarlet swapped out as the character that goes on that mission with Baroness, it would be a very different dynamic and very different set of conversations that they'll be having. So yeah, that it is good that we're getting such strong character moments coming through.
I'm struck by a couple things in the middle of this issue on page 9 when Baroness convinces Duke to let her go, and as you said, he's a bit of a softie, and he says, I'll have to clear it with Hawk. 48 hours, no more, no weapons, no killing. And I wrote down, I bet she's going to use a weapon and kill somebody. And I really thought it would happen in this issue. Now I'm convinced it'll happen in the next issue. Suddenly I'm worried that it's going to be Raptor. And I want, characters to last longer. And in the letters page, they say, if we kill someone, we're not bringing them back. And I do think a character with as cool a visual as Raptor would last more than an issue and a half of this series. So I think it's more like whatever next wave of Bloodhounds might get introduced. She takes them out. But I chuckled when I read these 3 word balloons from Duke, because she is absolutely going to stay longer than she's allowed. She's absolutely, it's like in every Harry Potter book and movie, a grown-up says to Harry and Hermione and Ron, it's like, whatever you do, don't leave your room and go find that magic book, right? It's like, whatever you do, don't leave the castle and go to the haunted forest. And then what do the kids do, right? And then on the next page, page 10, where we get this page turn sort of punchline of this private jet and she's all dressed up. I think, this is where the solo issue starts. Because, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, in issue 7 of Energon Universe G.I. Joe, we get this spotlight issue on Beachhead. And it's a solo mission. He gets a lot of pages and panels to show us what he's got and to have an interior monologue running in his narration, so we get to know him, what he wants, what he doesn't want. And then at the end, 2 other established characters show up and he's sort of brought in. And in the letters page, the writer and editor say, we're going to do some sort of spotlight issues. And I sort of wondered, is this the second arc? Is it like 6 spotlight issues in a row? And you and I talked about this in our last episode. And if this issue 8 is that again, it's not really a spotlight, because the Baroness and CoverGirl, their sort of mission, their story starts on page 10. And so I think I'm just sort of asking you, Mark, am I remembering that wrong? They weren't promising us a bunch of definite sort of spotlight solo issues in a row, right?
It's kind of felt like they were a little bit. And so it was kind of one of my observations was, hold on, wasn't the indication last time that we were going to have a bit more of a one and done set of issues which are a bit more of a focus on maybe a particular character or something. And the beginning part of this issue very much just felt like a continuation of the story, and maybe at a slightly smaller scale, that you don't. It's the between moment. You've got the training sequence. You've got Destra and Cobra Commander talking to each other and sort of looking at what's going on. You've got, Hound and Clutch sort of establishing this relationship after the big reveal. So it's a bit, a bit of a quiet, a bit of business in the middle before maybe things ratchet up again. But it felt very much like a continuation of the story. And I think that's an interesting observation that maybe this sort of more spotlight sort of solo bit is the middle of the story onwards, that we've got now this sort of two-header of CoverGirl and Baroness on this mission.
I do like this issue. I don't have any problem with the ratio of pages that are sort of the whole team or checking in with Cobra, or, Baroness only, or Baroness and CoverGirl teaming up. I was just surprised because I had an expectation going in. I do think this is, in a totally reasonable way, just the next issue of G.I. Joe, and not this, sidestep. It's like, what's another person doing over here? Like, oh, Beachhead over in Night Force. What's Night Force? And if you were to rejigger this issue 8, to feel more like what I was expecting, you would have one page of the Joe's training at the beginning, and maybe not even the page of Cobra Commander and Destro talking about Transformers. You would start with the Baroness walking toward her jet. That would be page 1. And then maybe do a 1-page flashback where she talks to Duke and says, I got to get out of here. Or she's at the cafe and she calls him and says, I know half my time is up. I'll be back. I will not be late. And CoverGirl could be there or not, right? CoverGirl could come get her or not. And Baroness would say, I will not be late. I will be back in 24 hours. And then you have the Falcon and then the Raptor thing. And then you have a fight all in this one issue. And all I'm doing here is just sort of trying to map some of what happens this issue onto kind of the basic structure of the previous issue. Again, this is not a criticism in that I was disappointed or I don't like something. I just had one expectation and now I've recalibrated. Mm-hmm. I will repeat one comment from a previous episode, and I think I might repeat it for the next 3 episodes, in that Lee Loughridge does a nice job coloring this issue, and it looks like G.I. Joe. It's clear, it's fun. Let me take out the F word. I won't yet say it's fun. It's clear, it's nice, it's good. It works with Milana's art. It's not fun and crazy occasionally the way that Jordi Belaire's colors were on Tom Reilly in the first 6 issues and in the Duke miniseries. And, here's an example. Page 11, Baroness is looking back on the runway. CoverGirl walks up. Second panel, they're going up the stairs, then they're in the plane, then the plane takes off. And, that second panel, the sort of gray beige of the ground, the runway and the stairs, and the sort of gray blue of the plane, and then everything inside the plane is sort of this uninteresting gray brown desaturated violet. And it's not bad, it's not ugly. I don't love it. I would like things to pop more. And I loved the color on the Cobra Commander miniseries so much on Andrea and Milana's art, and I was hoping for that. Speaking of other books published by Skybound, the colors on Invincible Universe Battle Beast are really fun and candy and gorgeous, and they pop. And you can always argue that, colors can describe an enhanced story, and, this story arc has a different feel than the previous story arc. The previous story arc was maybe crazier, with mind control and Duke being reckless and, revelations about Cobra. And this is more, quiet and espionage and Beachhead's under sand for 3 days and the Baroness is just walking onto a plane. This is not like, sort of moments that really pop. But I did this with our last episode, so I'll do it one more time. Imagine this final page with Raptor if this had been colored by Jordi Belaire. Like, something about it would be like, orange.
Nuts. Just
And
nuts.
I know for some people that's too much. And this may be exactly what they want in a G.I. Joe. But part of what I liked about the other approach is that it was so different from how the colors on Larry Hama's Real American Hero look. And when I look at this issue and I squint, the colors are really similar to Real American Hero. And I want these two books to be really distinct and different from each other.
Very good. I mean, we started the episode talking about the kind of to this particular issue. And I think maybe the listeners and readers can almost enjoy it for what it is without us necessarily dissecting it too much. It's a cool scene, cool bit of unexpected interruption and menace and anarchy being injected by all of these birds flapping about and causing mayhem and destruction. And what a great splash page introduction to Raptor as that final showstopper of the last page of the book.
Maybe not an analysis, but a quick sort of reminder. When Raptor has shown up in Larry Hama's Real American Hero back in, issue 58, or that Mike Zeck cover to 56, 59, I can't remember, with the pogo and the slam. Mm-hmm. He doesn't control birds, right?
Well, he has, in that particular issue with the pogo, he's got his birds and he's got lures and he sends them off to try and find the Joes, and they come back with bits of fabric. But as a character, he's an accountant. He's a weirdo dressing in a suit. He's got what are basically normal birds that he's trained, but they don't necessarily do masses with him, and they don't push the envelope in terms of what he does too far into the extreme. Whereas here it's a bit more of a bombastic, closer to a superhero villain kind of approach to him in terms of really pushing the envelope on the design with these engine wings on his wings, because he doesn't fly in G.I. Joe in the comic either, and his birds don't necessarily do a lot of damage beyond sort of flapping down and ripping some fabric off of these, the top of the APC and helping him figure out where the Joes are and stuff. So it is a different approach to the character versus what he.
Because here they're sort of murder birds. Here they're sort of Alfred Hitchcock, Iwerks birds that attack you and you run for cover.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the comparison that I wanted to make. On page 16, when we from afar see the Baroness's parents, a question and a comment. One, Mark, are these actually her parents? Or is she lying to CoverGirl because that's a misdirect and she's going to run away? Or are they having a real heart-to-heart? Thoughts?
It's a good thought, and the thought did pass my mind as well. So is it legitimately their parents? She's talking just, completely straightforwardly. They are her parents. She's seeing this sort of anniversary moment. She wants to stand back. So because they've got this maybe a strange relationship, and she doesn't want to interrupt that special moment, but she wants to, see it and feel connected, etc. Or is there some other, is that a complete lie and something else is going on entirely? At the other extreme, which I don't think is the case. Maybe they are assassination targets, and this is some other mission that she's kind of contracted out to do that she wants to see through or something. I think it's probably the former, and it is on face value. But yeah, it's entirely possible that something else is going on there.
I mean, Joshua Williamson, the more he makes the Baroness sympathetic and honest and nice, the more it'll surprise us and hurt when she inevitably betrays Duke and G.I. Joe and becomes, a Cobra agent in issue, 20 or 90.
Yeah, and that's kind of what they're playing into in those first few pages, isn't it? It's the inevitable moment that she's going to betray the Joes, and no, it's just a training mission. So it's still sort of it's still a moment for when will that happen? When will it happen? How will it happen? Who knows?
My comments on this scene where we see her parents is that the Baroness has had a family before in the worlds of G.I. Joe. So just a quick reminder, Chameleon in Devil's Due was her sister, half-sister, clone?
I'm not 100% sure. That was convoluted, that storyline. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, anyway, what we do know, folks, is that in Devil's Due, Baroness has a kid, and there's a whole, and it's not a spoiler because there's a whole story arc called Sins of the Mother, where she's like, where's my kid? That's my Baroness impression. And way back in Marvel issue, is it 95, 94 in the Snake Eyes trilogy, Larry Hama adds some backstory for the Baroness, which overlaps with Snake Eyes' backstory, where the Baroness has a brother, and is he sort of basically protesting the Vietnam War?
I think he's killed in an arms deal with Vietnamese.
Remembering that wrong. I've got some pictures in my head of Mark Bright drawing characters, like in the streets yelling with their fists raised. And the Baroness blames her brother's death on Snake Eyes, which is this really amazing and damning layering of the antagonism of Larry Hama's G.I. Joe, because Cobra Commander already blames Snake Eyes for Cobra Commander's family's death because of Snake Eyes' family and the car accident. And so there is no direct connection here. I'm not saying like, oh, and we also saw the Baroness's parents once in another continuity. I'm just saying there are many G.I. Joe characters where we have never seen their families. We've never heard of them. Certainly there was a lot of more of that in the Devil's Due continuity. And certainly Larry Hama has added to it a bit since Real American Heroes started up again in 2010, Duke's marriage and Spirit Iron Knife's parents and Sneak Peek's mom. But I just wanted to sort of do a quick checklist of other times we have met people related to the Baroness.
Very good. Are we done, do we think, with this?
I had one quick question of you. On page 17, this is when CoverGirl is saying it can be hard to not meet the expectations of your parents. But it wasn't me, not what I wanted. I found something I was good at. It's my life, not theirs. Right, Baroness? And I just wanted to ask you, Mark, the second panel here on page 17, Andrea Milana has, in the first panel, drawn CoverGirl sort of holding her arm, so sort of, rubbing her arm while looking off to the side. And then that second panel, we've got a close-up of her hand on her arm. And I think I'm looking for something that's not here. And it's just a close-up that could as well have been on her face. But I just wanted to double check. I'm not missing something, right? This isn't like, she's not like covering up a tattoo or like grabbing a weapon because she thinks they're about to get attacked. This isn't like a spy gesture to someone 20 feet across the street. We're just closing in on like her hands while she's talking.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just being interesting with the camera and sort of closing in on that and sort of just highlighting maybe some of this body language that she's sort of being quite open and honest, but sort of also vulnerable and, sort of just, the body language sort of kind of exposing that sort of that she's opening up and there's this vulnerability and she's almost sort of like hugging herself as kind of comfort. But an alternative take could be that she was hurt in the first arc of this story and she, had some burns and stuff. And maybe, maybe those are a little bit sore sensitive and she's sort of touching those because of that. I don't think that's the case because it would probably be highlighted a little bit more obviously that there was an injury there if that was the case, but just putting it out there that could be a potential alternative that was being thought about if it was in the script. Cool. I did enjoy this issue. I'm really looking forward to the next one. It was a very surprising issue for me in terms of that twist that I just did not see coming of that agent being Raptor and bringing that interesting classified design into the pages of this comic. So I suspect that we've got a redacted cover for next issue in terms of the solicits, and maybe we might see Raptor in one of the covers that hasn't yet been revealed.
Maybe a Tom Reilly drawing of him standing there looking at his hand.
Maybe that might exist. Although, if it is a direct interpretation of the classified design, it might be that he's not needed to do that turnaround specifically for Raptor. So I think we're done with issue number 8, which means that issue number 9 will be next. That will come out basically a month on from issue number 8. 16th of July is the release date. They tease who is ? Baroness and Covergirl are about to find out as they fight for their lives. Oh, ? is Raptor. Meanwhile, Clutch and Hound investigate Cobra's Energon weapons. And there is indeed actually a variant cover, which is currently a spoiler. So I imagine that is an explosion background cover for Raptor, which we would no doubt see in a month's time. Cool. So I think that is it for Talking Joe this time round. Head on over to talkingjoe.co.uk to find us and all of the places that we live on the internet, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There's even links to us on Patreon, patreon.com/talkingjoe. So a big thanks to our backers, Richard, Sam, Bill, Christopher, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike, D, Shane, V2. This version of Shane has got bigger wings with sort of jet engines attached to them. Infinite Entertainment and Patrick, who are all getting early access to episodes as well as some exclusive content. Tim, where can people find you when you're not talking to me about all things G.I. Joe comics?
youtube.com/@AtomicAbe for fun and smart video essays on television and film. My comic book store right outside of Boston, Hub Comics, and my blog, arealamericanbook.com.
Very good. And I believe that you had an important message for the listeners to just make sure that they jotted down in their Talking Joe notebooks ahead of seeing us next time.
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Laters.
Hey, under 2 hours. Look at us.